I would like to open the topic of life force energy today, like vitality, what we've been talking about already in the other video, also as one of the aspects of soul embodiment. And I'd like to share an observation with you, maybe as the starting point for this conversation, that I see like how people have different levels of vitality. It's very tangible for me. I can really feel it. I can see it in their expression and their how much they allow themselves to let this life force be part of them and flow through them. And yeah, make this as the starting point from for this conversation. So maybe you can talk a little bit about why there's difference and how this manifests.
Life force have few ways, or few, perhaps to say, scales that it can be measured by. One is how much life force there is, in a way. It's the amount, the volume, or maybe, like the amount. How much energy. It is influenced by other aspects. So for example, another one is what frequency is it vibrating in. Mm-hmm. Another one is how focused or diverse is the frequency. Mm-hmm. And another one is how conductive is the body for life force. Mm-hmm. The more conductive, the more amount of life force there will be. That's the higher the frequency, the more energy it is. So it's like higher amount. The more diversity of frequencies simultaneously, then it depends on how harmonious is that diversity. The more harmonious it is, the more energy is. It's less fractured, so it's more powerful impact. So there are different aspects of vitality, or of how much life force there is to that person. So maybe I'll check with you more. What did you notice that gave you an indicator for life force?
Mm-hmm. So what I observed, or what I've noticed, is like there's just this sense of aliveness and vibrancy in people, in their bodies. Like really, when I see a person moving, like I can see the body is like the hands are connected to the feet. There's there's a free flow of energy in the body. It's like not there's certain blocks that are really tangible or visible, but the whole person has manifested in the body like a certain level of aliveness. And it's not necessarily like positivity or like happiness or something. It's more like this like allowance to be open to the feeling body, maybe also, or to the feelings, what wants to flow through, like not shutting down towards certain experiences or feelings. Mm-hmm. So in this aliveness, there's also for me a sense of like wholeness, like the person feels more integrated in a way, like mm-hmm. It's feels more like whole in themselves when I get this sense of like life force, openness to life force, vitality. Healthy, the person also seems healthy to me. Mm-hmm. Like has energy, it's active in a way. There's movement. Not physical movement necessarily, but in body, it's tangible and visible that there is a specific movement happening, a flow. Yeah.
So, yeah, as you described, like the body moves more energy, it's the conductivity. Said more integrated is like harmonizing different frequencies. Said it's not necessarily like happiness or specific feeling, so it's not about higher frequency or lower frequency. You said it's it feels that a person have more energy, like more motivation, more like in a way perhaps to say charge, maybe not, maybe that one also not, and it's more about the conductivity and the harmonization of frequencies. I guess those two are more dominant in the way you describe. The harmonization of frequencies, there is in that, perhaps to say psychologically, the element of acceptance of life more as it is, the self more as it is, with all its different parts and aspects, and not trying to be somehow so much. The comparing to the frequency, which is to bring higher frequency, is a certain attempt to influence more. There is a motivation aspect in it, that is focusing on in a way, as higher the frequency is, then it's easier to harmonize it with more frequencies. Like if, because for an identity which usually stagnates in a certain range of frequency, and identities also, there are different states. Like suddenly when there is a trigger, I can be a different person. It's like a different state comes up, and that would be a different frequency. And that can be more regressed or more progressed than the normal default. But whatever state, so there is the default frequency. And as higher it is, the easier it is to harmonize, yet it's two different focuses. Because if I'm focusing on one frequency, I give a lot of power in that specific narrow range, and when it is diverse, it's not so much something specific, but it's generally harmonious. Like it's overtoning in many aspects, to say.
Can you maybe explain what you mean with like higher frequency or lower frequency? Can you translate this in like language that is like in a language?
Yeah, I guess you mean more tangible.
Yes.
For the experience.
Yeah.
So higher frequency, higher vibration, it's like literally the waves, the electromagnetic waves are shorter. They are more frequent. There are more cycles. In a way, every wave, it's a revolution. It's like a cycle. There are more cycles per moment. So there are more I am, like more times per moment of presence. So in a way, it's more aware. It's it's more consciously present. It's in a way some influence of how we experience consciousness that is reflected on the energy field, but consciousness is something way more complex than that. But this is one aspect of its expression on the electromagnetic field of life force. And another, so this is the frequency, like lower frequency, so it's longer waves. So it's like longer journey to come to, again, beginning of a wave. So there is less intense presence of consciousness specifically in the experience. So there is less awareness of self, of being, in a way. There is more tendency to unconscious parts to act through. Now, the higher the frequency, so the shorter the waves, they can fit in a whole number into more longer waves. So it's easier to harmonize with. It can overtone more possibilities of frequencies, the higher the frequencies, which means the shorter the waves. The lower frequencies, it's more difficult from such state to harmonize with a variety of fields. I would say even emotional fields. I like also the word emotion, because it's like E, energy, in motion. And I think it just perhaps accidentally happened to be in such a fitting, but it's very fitting, because what we experience as emotion is literally energy that vibrates in a certain frequency, and we interpret it as different emotions. Most of how we process the data of the input through that sensor, the in the center of the heart, the pacemaker, most of it we interpret as emotions, as feelings and emotions. Although there is some quality of presence in it, the vitality, it's life force, energy, but we don't have so much vocabulary to describe it more objectively, so there is the tendency to just subjectively interpret it and identify with the input as if it is my, it's my emotion, like to own it, or I am not even. Most people would not say I am feeling such and such. They would say I am such and such. It's like there is the identification with the input, and that is more that mental habit, cognitive habit, in a way challenges more integration of higher frequencies in that sense, or harmonizing more frequencies. As more identification with the input, the less possibility to harmonize with other frequencies.
Okay, but by input through the heart sensor that you were just talking, maybe let's talk a little bit more about it to get a bit more understanding. Like, it's what I heard from you so far, it's like a different sense of perception that we have, like a different, like seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, like a different sense of perception. And if I hear you speaking about input, it's like, for example, when I see something, there's like something that is external from me that I perceive, and then like my brain like makes all this wiring, and then I have this like, okay, I see this, but it needs something that's external of me, so it needs a specific sensory input. So same with the heart sensor that you were just talking about. Like, what is this input, like, actually, like, where is it coming from? What is, like, is it like a come from people, places, just in the space? Like, how can we imagine the input of the heart sensor?
So it's good, I think, also to try to imagine it, because it helps to build the neural pathways to perceive it more. But it also helps to distinguish how the actual sensor of perception works, because it is less familiar. But there is a biological sensor, like there is the vagus nerve from the brain that have many different functions, but its main function is actually its sensory nerve of input from an area, like tissue, that is around an area in the very center of the heart, between the four rooms of the heart. There is a place which is the biological pacemaker that creates the rhythm of the heart. The tissue around it is vagus nerve, gets a lot of data from there. Now, it in a way senses the nuances of the rhythm of the heart that is generated. The rhythm of the heart is in a way generated, it's like what determines the pulses, the beginning of the pulses, because the heart pulsate, it's a muscle, and then all the arteries, it's a continuous in a way of the muscle, because these are the vessels that are also covered with a muscle, and that ripples. There is a certain electric wave that ripples, and also motional wave, like motion. And in a way, we're sensing it through the feeling in the body. It's not just specifically in the heart, it's in the whole body. It's like going all the way to the fingers and toes, but also in the center. In the center it's stronger, but it's all of it. Just like be present in the body and feel what your body feel. It's literally this sensor, but the center of the sensor is in the center of the heart. And what it receives physically, it is responding to electromagnetic fields that are in the field, in the environment. Every biological cell generates an electromagnetic field. And this field is made of matter as well. This matter is in a fourth state of matter that comes like after solid, liquid, gas, then comes plasma, which is ionized gas. It's like it creates a magnetic tension and allows electric waves to move. And this is in a way what influences the nuances of rhythm of our heart that then ripples into the body, and it's subtle. So as more we pay attention to it consciously, the more the brain automatically builds connections to become more aware of it, and then we are more aware of what we feel, or what life emotes, how to say. The thing is, and this is the cognitive, perhaps to say, problem with all that, is that our society is very ignorant about the presence of such sensor, and this is a major sensor. I mean, it's equivalent to the other five. It's like one of them. It's a sixth one, and there is also a seventh one that is very important and relevant, no less, which is the pineal sensor. But that's a whole other topic. But the heart sensor I call it heart sensor. I mean, it's just comfortable name. Feeling sensor or emotional sensor. I don't know. We have the tendency when we talk about emotions, we say our emotions,
Yes.
my emotions, or I am afraid, I am angry, I am happy, but I am, and then it's like if I equivalent it to color, so I am blue or I am red, it's like it's very limiting. It's like, no, I'm not that or that, or if we equivalent it to sound, it's like we're not a specific sound. We can generate different sounds, but also not every sound we perceive is ours, it's us. It's like most of the sound we perceive is from the environment. Yes, it's within consciousness, the perception of it, but it's in the environment. Same with the feelings or emotions, however it's more comfortable to call them.
So interesting, because we grow up and we get somehow conditioned with this belief that this is our emotion or this is our feelings. So I am, like you say, I am sad, I am happy, I am whatever, but it's very interesting, and I would love to talk to you more detailed about this with you in another video. But now to come back to the life force and these I think 4 characteristics that you said, where like how we went to this whole heart sensor topic was talking about the frequency of the of our life force, like where you said like it's like shorter wavelengths and then broader wavelengths, and like how this relates also, like you say, like through the heart sensor, how we relate to the environment, how like the shorter wavelength or higher frequency actually is more adaptable to lower frequencies. And maybe like once again the question, like what like other words like for high frequency, like what comes to me is like love and compassion and I don't know, such things, and lower frequencies more something like fear or shame. Like, can you equivalent these, or is it like how can you describe this a little bit more?
Yeah, there is some degree of equivalency, but it's important to remember that our vocabulary to describe emotions, they are overly subjective in how it is described. We have not evolved an objective definition of that so much. Yes, we have these general 4 basic emotion that we kind of say happy, sad, angry, and afraid. It's like disgust. Some say there is disgust, like analyzing actual face expressions, or repulsion. But it's some basic level, but if we want to go into nuances and details, there is much more complexity in it. Like we can describe shape, for example, or color in more details because we have evolved vocabulary for it. And we can also emotions, but there is the habit to identify with emotions rather than shapes or sounds or smells, which also it's very hard to have vocabulary. The hearing and vision is kind of very dominant. And to your question then, even though the complexity, yes, you mentioned the shame, for example. Shame is like when we feel shame, there is contraction. So that is clear indicator of a certain block in the flow of the life force energy. A block in the flow is necessarily less integrating variety of frequencies, because more flow, more is actually more energy. And if there is less flow, it's less energy, it can have less variety, it can have less, the frequency will become lower, like necessarily, like it's related. Shame possibly as perhaps the most limiting frequency there is. Also the experiencing it as a positive or negative, so because every frequency we can judge either way experientially. So the positive side would be something very automatic. It's not necessarily an ecstatic feeling, it's just like an instinct. And the shame is more like an external regulator that suppresses the impulse, the instinctual impulse. So suppresses from externally. Like shame is always socially conditioned. Like we never have from ourselves shame if it's not from another person that perceive us somehow. So comparing to happiness, joy, I mean, that would necessarily be higher frequency, not necessarily more integrative. That's not necessarily, because it might not be able to be sustainable in different scenarios. And it's like, so as more we make it integrative, harmonious with different frequencies, in a way it's more towards what we can describe as love or compassion. Like love that is more that is less conditional, or compassion. But the higher frequency is usually a more positive, because we can expand our ability to have love and compassion to others, but it's not necessarily expanding our experience of joy. It can actually bring a heartbreak of how humanity is so lost in connection to nature, but there is so big love for nature and for humanity, and the willingness to give oneself to be part of that evolution of humanity, to reharmonize with nature. It's like, it's not necessarily a positive like joy, happiness, bliss. So that can be a different tangibility representers in the experience of the difference between higher and lower frequency. It's a little bit like more positive and negative in a way, although higher frequency also have the negative side always. It's because something can be overwhelming even if it comes from a higher frequency. And the more expansion of unconditional love, which is more harmonization of variety of frequencies.
Okay, so I'm wondering, like, because what I'm observing within myself, but also in other people, is that people carry a specific like baseline frequency, almost like it's like some people have more tension, like in their, like when I feel into them, there's more like tension, there's more fear maybe. With others there's more acceptance, there's more openness. Like it's like this baseline frequency. Is this what you're talking about, or is it more like also because like I, for example, sometimes go in one day through all the emotions, like it's like there's like, are you talking about these more short-term like very present moment experiences of an emotion, like energy in motion, or are you talking more about this baseline frequency that a person is generally vibrating on, where of course there's variations, maybe more like more higher frequency, more lower frequency, but like in general I feel like there's a, like where a person can be almost like classified into like a specific baseline. Like maybe you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, in a way you can say there is the average of the person, and we all fluctuate from the average. And then there is how monotonous we are, or how far from the average. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The amplitude, in a way, relates to the harmonization of frequencies, or when it is held in harmony. This is because a high amplitude without the consciousness ability to harmonize all these aspects of oneself, that sometimes I'm like this and sometimes I like this, but how do I connect these parts? So it can actually break the identity into different states that are not conscious of each other. So it's splitting personality in a way. And it's also common. I mean, it does not have to be a major split. It can be semi-conscious, one part to the other, but other not to the one, something like that. But the ability to integrate all the states into a one continuum, that is in a way harmonizing different parts. So that is the deepest, darkest moments and the most enlightened, blissful moments. Can I just see it all as just seasons, as just waving, and there is the silent thread line that passes through of neutral observer, that so it's allowing more integration in that sense. Just checking, is it answering?
I have this image right now, because I have all this time like this curves of frequency in my mind. Like that's how I kind of like the lens, the perspective through which I see this conversation right now. And like what you were just talking about, this integration, also to maybe estimate the baseline frequency of a person that I've been talking about before, is like to take all these like different curves and experiences that you were just talking about, like the deepest, darkest, dark night of the soul, like moments, frequencies, and then also the like highest bliss, whatever frequencies, and then like make this average. Like you're like more in like into math, but like I remember there's some way of like how to like integrate different curves or frequencies and to like make an average of it, and this somehow being the baseline frequency of this person, like something like that. That's like my like what I have right now in my mind, like because somehow I find it it's also a way of like classifying people, but I have some pleasure in it right now in like finding a construct or a theory around this topic like that works.
I would say it's possible to apply Fourier constructions in describing the waving of the emotion.
And what construction?
Fourier, it's like in math. There are different types of waves simultaneously, and they can all be kind of synthesized into an equation or a function that is set of functions actually that happen simultaneously, and it's easier when the amplitude is lower in a way, but it's more alive when the amplitude is higher, but it can be too alive that it breaks the persona in a way, splits it. Yes, though there is the average. The average is a habit. I mean, it's a habit. It's becoming a trait, but it's something we have practiced too. Like we start quite as a plain sheet, like white paper. Quite. There are some influences, but the environment affects a lot in shaping our personality. A habit that is existing for many years, it's very difficult to change. Identity, in a way, is a type of addiction, eventually, and especially in society that is not conscious, and even suppressing the process of cognizing, of recognizing that we are generating our identity through attaching it to specific emotional frequencies, rather than perceiving the emotions we experience as the emotion we experience, and not our, and definitely not us. So this is kind of like a bit far from the mainstream thinking. Although it's not like fully contradicting, like heretic necessarily, but it's not a habit in the collective, and it's very easy to say, yeah, but I am sad about this, or I am like whatever feeling.
Or even more generalized, like I'm just a happy person, or
Yeah.
I'm just like a sad person, or whatever. Like I'm depressed. Like
Exactly. So this is exactly now the average might be with a gap to how we perceive ourselves, who we think we are, is not necessarily even matching the average of our frequencies. And this is the construction that at some point we have fixated on, this is literally how we blind ourselves. Like literally. An example, very like, if I say I am a happy person, so I attach my identity in principle on the mental aspect. I attach it to certain frequency, which we interpret, or I interpret, as happy. In actuality, it does not have to be like that. But when I remind myself, then again, but it means in all these times I am not, I am dissociated. And this is a very big dissociation and very prevalent. Like many people do that. Like I am such and such person. Eventually, the more complex, psychologically complex the person, it allows to meet more aspects of oneself, and it's less limiting. But any identification with a specific emotional or frequency is a blind spot, and quite a major one. Example, if to translate, means I am that hand. Now, or maybe better, even not a part of the body. It's just like I am the lime, like I am that. So now, everywhere I move my eyes to, I need to use the effort of the hand to make sure it's in the range of what I see, because what I see is I. If suddenly my hand gets tired and I don't see the lime, or my attention was taken to something in the side and I was not remembering to move my hand and put the lime in front of my eyes also, which is already a blind spot because I cannot see what's behind the lime. Um, but it's also exhausting, very limiting. But in that moment, I don't see the line, so I'm not myself. That's kind of the how people fool themselves, as if they can be not themselves. It's like it's absurd to say I am not me, or I'm not myself. It's like it's not taking responsibility. It's like, I mean, it's absurd. So that's a tangible representation of that cognitive, maybe to say, absurd or logical failure in how the habit of people perceiving themselves with associating the identity with an emotional specificity of whatever. It can be positive and it can be negative. I'm an angry person, or like I am a depressed person. Yeah.
And what I see a lot of times in my work is that, like, as soon as there's a different emotion or experience than from like where the identity lies, there's a lot of resistance also. Like there's a lot of like what you just called like as dissociation. There's a lot of like, I don't want to feel this, like this is not who I am. Like there's a lot of really like resistance of like I don't want this to be part of me.
I will die and not let it be. It's like to that level.
Yeah, it's like really like a strong like pushing away of aspects of ourselves. I know it from myself very well as well. Like, which touches this topic of integration, right? Like where you also were like harmonization and integration to accept like all the expressions of of this human experience. Is this what you're touching or talking about?
So all the aspects, that's too large, but yeah, in these two aspects, because there are more aspects even to the expression of life force, which is very much in our emotional experience. It's not just the variety of frequency or the harmonization. Like, so one is harmony and one is frequency. Like
Harmony, frequency, conductivity?
Yeah, like the frequency, so it would be the average frequency. Now conductivity is another one, and also charge. Yeah, it's like how much energy in a way. And it can be potential, it can be very, very charged, but not discharging yet. It can be stagnated, so it's intense. It can be very intense, for good and for bad, in very different frequencies. It's like, but the charge is also important aspect, because as more intense we are in the experience, yet we can keep harmony, then it expands much more our experience, rather than if the experience is not so intense, but there is a wide perspective that can contain within it a lot. Like, so it's like it's more alive in a way, it's more vital when there is stronger charge, but it can be also more destructive, more like to places of like motivation for revenge. It's very charged emotion. It's also an aspect of charge, but also the willing to do anything to support something that is making better in the world. So and the conductivity is a little bit different in the way we relate to it, because it's more about just the state of the body. It's a lot about the posture, like the actual position of the bones to each other, like the joints and the tension in the muscles or not, and also what material the body is made of, which means what food or what nutrition the body is created by. So it changes slower in that sense, in the actual material, But the posture, it's something we can work with very quickly, and it's both influenced from in to out and also from out to in. Like something can happen and I change the posture and I'm now little and small, or someone give me a certain compliment and it's like the opposite now, and my ego is pumped, as people say, or like I'm proud. So, but I can consciously choose to find the alignment and the center and allow more conductivity, and also being aware of the tonus of the muscles, not fully unpresent but also not tense. There is that fine balance. Of course, again, what we eat, that's a whole topic, maybe too much to go into. So that's also aspects of literal effect on the experience of life force. But beyond all that, there is another, I think, important distinguishment. Okay, before that.
I just want to share like something very quick about this topic of the, like a little anecdote from my own life about this topic of the posture that you were just talking about. The beginning of this year, I received a chiropractic session where a friend of mine was like realigning my whole structure and my whole like bones, how they position to each other. And when we were like in the end of the session, he was sharing with me like a little bit also this connection with like how, what you were just talking about, like the conductivity and like how actually the soul is also sitting like in our bones and like also in the structure of, and how the position is in the bones and everything. And I should like observe what changes in my life through like this session and through this chiropractic alignment I received. And it was really like I had several of my like in my spine, what's the word, the vertebrae were out of alignment. He like repositioned them, and also in my hips, and like they were like, he worked a lot on me. And I like my life like really, I mean, obviously also here living on this island, but still like there were so many changes I observed in my life, and how much I suddenly started to attract people in my life that brought like very interesting new perspectives and offers in my life. And like it just like really something I felt like in my soul structure changed through this realignment of my like bones, of my structure, of my physical structure.
Yeah, the 99 joints is to align them, and in a way that's the baseline for allowing the tension that stagnates in the bones, in the muscles, in the nerves, in like in all the fascia. It's like it's kind of a construction of tensegrity that goes through 99 joints and concentrates, and it's fascinating to explore it. And it's just like now happened something in the body is moving. Are we aware enough or not? And as more we are aligned, it gives a quality of clarity to the consciousness. The more we are conductive, there is more clarity in one side, which means we are less tending towards patterns that are generating disharmony. Because if we're having more clarity, we are like wiser in our choices in a way. So I mean, we can still choose something else, and then we can see that it's destructive. We might have still motivation to do the destructive pattern, but generally it gives more clarity, because as more we will continue with the destructive pattern, we will also lose that the clarity will become more fogged in a way. And regarding magnetism, it's also very, very part of that, because the more conductive the body is for life force, the more conductivity there is, the stronger charge one can hold in a way, like the stronger center of gravity or magnetic pole. So in when there is a certain polarity that is magnetic, there is a stronger magnetization towards such person that is more conductive, as long as that person have the ability also to harmonize with to integrate the frequency that it is polar to. Because if not, it creates exactly the opposite reaction, which is a more intense negative reaction. It will not be neutral. Like that's the thing with strong charge. It's less neutral. It's either very positive or very negative. But it's more alive. That's for sure. And then there is the other thing I wanted to say, which is important to distinguish between, so there is my smell and the smells I smell, or my sound and the sounds I hear. So the same, there are like my emotions and the emotions I feel. And this distinguishment is not so clear usually. And it's complex, because if we really want to define it clearly, we kind of need to evolve our language to be able to also talk in fourth person perspective and not just up to third person perspective. Because it is in a way the energy, the freedom of motion of the energy is or of plasma state of matter have a four-dimensional freedom of motion, comparing to gas that it have three-dimensional, or liquid two, and solid just one, just gravity. So we kind of limit our imagination to a three-dimensional perception of reality, dimensions of same type or same quality. And we're kind of stuck in that box out of habit. And based on such perspective, we also stagnate or habitually evolve specific identity. Like stagnate into specific identities, like a specific magnetic structure that we kind of keep it always. But it's exhausting subtotally. It's not efficient so much. To distinguish between our emotions and emotions that exist in the field, so it can be tricky. An example is if I sit somewhere and just having a conversation with a person, and then suddenly someone comes very angry and screaming. I don't know this person, but he's disturbing our conversation. I can feel a wave of anger to the person. Is it my emotion, the anger? Is it his frequency that he generates and I also feel? Or how much it is resonating also with something that exists in me. And in a way, it's all true to some degree. That's why the fourth person perspective is needed, because there is not exactly me that it's fully mine. Yet in the body, we can stagnate some parts from flow of life force. And these parts keeping a charge. It's like one of the characteristics, one of the dimensions in a way of the life force is charge. And it keeps charge more and more intense. It is stagnated because the perception about it is negative. Or it can be positive, but it's not integrated. That's the thing. It's not, the harmonization cannot integrate that specific frequency or at least in such charge. So when same frequency comes from outside, it can trigger that exact charge that was kept, and it discharges impulsively. So it's intense because there is charge, but it's not from an harmonious perspective. And it can be a negative, it can be also something positive, like when we fall in love and become obsessed about, like, so we idolize. It can be a positive judgment. It's anyway type of judgment.
So what I'm hearing is the more we suppress certain impulses of life force to flow through, like it creates charge and like
Stagnated charge.
stagnated charge.
Yeah.
And when this charge opens up or becomes discharged, it's something that's usually perceived by others as something uncomfortable or something like it's not harmonious.
Exactly. It's not harmonious because it's not harmonious within me. So it's the disharmony is what perceived. And yeah, it just creates mess. It's better to be wiser than to be impulsive. And it's tricky because we also need to let it move through. The thing is just not to suppress it and let the charge intensify and stagnate more, but just to let it through authentically in the moment. But that might be dismantling a habit that was evolved a long time to keep a certain charge. Now there is also a whole complexity which I'll just mention a little bit. It's interesting to perceive, but we will not fully go into that, at least in this video. But different parts of the body, when they hold charge, it's kind of different aspects of our emotional experience. There is a big difference if it is in the limbs or in the center and the inner organs, the difference between them. So it's a whole topic that kind of different harmonic resonances with different types of frequencies that can be stagnated and intensified with charge. But it's a very specific structure because we have very specific organs as well. So that is a whole thing. Actually, there is a whole method that I've evolved around that. But it's a complex topic to just go briefly because I guess we are near the ending. But just wanted to mention that as intellectual stimulation.
Okay. Yeah, it's maybe a nice topic for another video to do. Okay, so maybe let's bring it to sum it up. Maybe you can very briefly just make a quick summary of this last hour that we talked of these 4 aspects of life force and how it manifests and how you can look at it, different perspectives and just a summary in case you're capable of doing it.
Yeah, I'll try. It might open a new side way, but yeah, okay. It's in a way the 4 dimensions. It's a offering of perception. It's a suggestion for perception of the 4-dimensionality of life force, which is what we perceive through the heart sensor, what at least I'm used to call, but the biological pacemaker, which is life force physically is the plasma state of matter, which we can also kind of relate to it as an electromagnetic field, but there is a matter that is less formed than solid, but it keeps a magnetic charge and electric frequencies in a way. And so there is how much energy. There are four things that affect it. How much life force, how alive we are. Four things. It's these four dimensions. It's like, so one is the charge. How intensely we are alive in a way. Which in a way, how much are we really now present in the moment, and like being less dissociated from the center of experience, like the midpoint of like so intensity, yeah, how intensely alive we are. It's positive, negative, and the and of course more energy. As more intense, there is more energy, more life force, but also can be more overwhelming, and so on. The second one is frequency, let's say. I mean, the order doesn't matter really. It's just four dimensions. Frequency, the higher the frequency, it's more energy. The lower, less. But the higher tends to be more positive because it also tends to be more harmonious, but not necessarily more intense. And also there is a lot of just like people who more focusing on peak experience, so it's not so integrative. But it's very high frequency, or like a lot in like party mode, or it's like, so it's higher frequency, but it's not so much harmony. Harmony is a third quality. How integrate how much frequencies can it integrate? So it's in a way I would relate it to compassion as an ability, or recognizing the essence of love as unconditional, even by a subject. And then last one is conductivity, which is about, in a way, how healthy the body is posture wisely, and also through what it's built of. And as more it's healthy, so there is more clarity from the fog of addictive patterns, like there is more cleanliness of perception, kind of more clear. We need to end, so of course I can go more into it, but
yeah, just as like this like last summary that we now like to quickly touch all these four dimensions and have this brief explanation. But yeah, I think it's nice to continue from like some of the topics that we opened today, because I feel like we can talk for hours and hours and hours and like go in all the details, but to structure it a little bit more, I feel like for now it's good to complete. Is there anything else you would like to share about this topic before we complete?
I am curious if one of the listeners is interested in elaboration of any of the parts. If there are questions, just like write in the comments, and we can possibly focus on that. Yeah,
That's a very nice idea. Yes, good.
yeah.
Okay,
We need to end.
we need to end. So thank you so much for this conversation,
Thank you.
and also thank you to everyone who listens and watches.
Everyone who made it.
Yes, made it to the end of this conversation. So yes.
Peace. Bye.